also because it's x. Let me do a quick think out loud. I write in this problem, I'm not going to use Pythagorean theorem. I'm not going to use Pythagorean theorem because Pythagorean theorem says given two sides, you can find the third side of the triangle. I only have one given, or really essentially two. In this problem, I'm not going to use triangle sum theorem because x is a side and triangle sum theorem is an angle. Angles are inside with degrees. Side lengths are on the side of the triangle on the outside. In this problem, I'm going to have to use my trig function, SOHCAHTOA. The first thing I'm going to do is label. Everyone say label? Let's label our triangle. Well, what do you label? I'm going to highlight our starting point, which is 40 degrees. Class, across the 40-degree angle, you have which side? Opposite. Now notice how this problem is not on the coordinate plane, so I'm not using x, y's, and r's. This one is called the across from the 90-degree angle is the hypotenuse. And this unknown side is the smallest side. After the hypotenuse and opposite, you have the adjacent side. Pay attention as I describe now how to find which trig ratio. So my second step, trig ratio. I notice that opposite has something. It has a clue. Adjacent has a clue. It's an unknown called x. Hypotenuse does not have a clue. It's blank. So I can't use the hypotenuse. If I look at my silly phrase here, I'm going to cross off everything that has the h. So the only trig function I'm going to use, class, is what? Tangent. And here's another way of checking that you're using the correct formula. I have the opposite and adjacent. That basically spells out TOA, tangent. Tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. Let's do our substitutions. Class, how much is our starting angle? Class, what is the opposite? 5.8. You don't need to have the measurements until the end. What is the adjacent? We have x. Class, how do you solve a proportion here? How do you make that a fraction? Now, how do you solve a proportion? We're going to cross multiply. So now I have x times tangent of 40 equals 1 times 5.8 or 5.8. I'm trying to solve for x, or the length of jk, so I need to remove this. Now this might be new to you. Tangent of 40 degrees is like a chunk. That's why it's in parentheses. It's next to each other, so the math operation here is multiplication. Therefore, to remove that, I'm going to divide both sides by tangent of 40. The tangent of 40 is over here cancel, and you actually have a calculator-ready equation. So if I had to describe to you step number 3, have a calculator-ready equation. A calculator-ready equation says this is what you're putting into your calculator. So if you have this on your paper and your answer is wrong, I can give you 3 out of 4 points. I can pick up my calculator and put in the work that you have. So I'm giving you partial credit. Thank you, Mr. Rank. Let's put that into our calculator. Extra set of parentheses, what we learned yesterday. 5.8, close parentheses, divided by, open parentheses, tangent 40, 2 sets of parentheses to close it. Press enter. Because this value here is rounded to the nearest tenths, I'm also going to round my answer to the nearest tenths. I have 6.9 millimeters. Let me show you one way of checking your answer to see if it's reasonable. And this is the reason why they call it the hypotenuse, or the longest side. In geometry, across the biggest angle is the biggest side. Therefore, since it's the biggest, that means this one has to be a smaller number than our given information, and this would be the smallest. So if our number is slightly bigger, because this would be a 50 degrees, this is going to be slightly bigger than 5.8, and that is true. So in this problem, label your triangle, your starting point, label it SOHCAHTOA, figure out which side you need. It'll tell you which ratio you're going to use. Have a calculator ready equation to get most amount of points, and then round your answer.